everyone. I am Judy Alter, the Optimistic BA, and this is my third and final jam show that I am hosting. I will be on the final jams, but not the host. So we are making our way through Jam Month, and it has been a great time. I have to confess, I'm going to have to binge watch a lot of them because I've been traveling, and they're not always at the best time. You're in the middle of speaking, you can't quite be on the show. Well, Paula Bell, our good friend, has joined us, but in the audience. But my good friends, Elizabeth Larson, Richard Larson, and Joe Lubert. All of us go back just a ways, especially the Larsons and I, since we live so close, close as in Minneapolis and Omaha, but closer than some. And of course, Joe. So maybe I'll let you each just say, for a couple minutes, something about yourself. Rich, we'll start with you on the left side, I guess.
Well, let's see. Elizabeth and I have been married for a long time. We ran Watermark Learning for a long time. We had different pathways to join up into the company, and we ran it for almost 30 years. I worked in banking. I worked in consulting, got into training, and we helped grow Watermark Learning over about 27 years and exited the company in 2019. And we've been grandparenting since and moved to Oregon a couple of years ago to be closer to two of our grandchildren out here. So
that's wonderful. Well, Joe, you want to say a couple words?
Yeah, it will just be a couple of words. 2 minutes is a very long time, Judy. So yeah, let's keep it a couple of words. For those that don't know me, my name's Joe. I work out of Cape Town in South Africa. I moved here when I was 28. I've been out here over 20 years now. Enjoying Cape Town, and I spend most of my days training people in business analysis too. So you've got a lot of training experience on this call, actually, Judy. But I'm glad to be on Judy's Jam. Thanks for inviting me on.
Absolutely. Elizabeth, you want to say a couple words?
And again, thank you, Judy. This is just fantastic what you're doing. My background, being an English major, I spent a lot of years as a management consultant, as a project manager, as a BA. I was actually a BA in 1983. That was my title. It's a little bit early. And I love the work. I find being like a management consultant and a BA, a lot of similarities. So I'm sure we'll talk about the nature of being a BA. But again, thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, you are welcome. And I would certainly include both of you in something like this because you have been around, I know, for a long time. And to be honest, to this day, when somebody asks me what company they should go through to get some of their certifications, I always recommend Watermark. And one of the key things is that for me personally, it wasn't enough to just go through a study group. I had to practice the tests, and your tests were the closest to anything that looked just like the actual tests. And so that was very helpful. And it was sometimes my friend and I we'd answer them wrong just to see what the explanation was. So we'd get a better idea of that because, as you know, some of them, two of those questions are so close. So, that was always, and I liked it that it worked on any device, So, and Mindy Bohannon's on, and she said that the Watermark test was huge for her too. So, and that lives on. So wonderful. Well, it is 20 years for IIBA. But first, we're going to go through past, present, and future of just business analysis itself. Our community of people who hang around at conferences got to talking in Las Vegas, and Kathy Burkage from Australia had the idea, maybe we should just do some jam. Or it wasn't a jam, but it was some event where we're just all sitting there talking and blah, blah, blah. Then we decided we needed some organization. And to be quite honest, as 2022 VA's adventure on a project together, we probably should get a project next time. That's how that goes. But it's been fun. And so the past, both of you were probably around. I know you were around when IIBA was first formed.
Yep.
What year did both of you join IIBA?
We're
We were
just
just talking
thinking.
about that.
Oh, sorry.
2004, Elizabeth, I think.
That's what we
somewhere in the
think.
first year.
Yeah, sure.
It had the early stages of the BACBOC had been around, but it was an early conference when we met the founders and kind of pushed our way in, being very interested in it. So I'm thinking 2004, so almost 20.
Yes. Now, were the two of you at the original conference in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, we were. Yeah.
Okay.
Was
Yeah,
it the
I think it
original?
was.
It was like
was in
2010, I think. Okay. A lot of people talk very fondly of that event.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
that's why I was curious if you were at that one.
Yes.
So when did you join IIBA?
I joined in about 2007, I think. So the South African chapter was originated in 2006. I think that's when the conversations first started. And so 2007, I've been a member every year since. That Washington event sounds like a bit like the Woodstock of the business analyst world, does it?
Well, we're not going to go there.
Well, yeah, we all kept our clothes on. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
But it was a fun event. I remember because everybody was so excited, and it wasn't okay. We've been to a lot of trade shows over the years, and that one sticks in my memory as one that was just really open and engaging, and people were just so anxious to meet each other and talk and really collaborate and network. It was one of the best conferences we've had.
Yeah.
Right. I remember that Elizabeth Moore, who was in my chapter, went to it, and she went to quite a few BBCs. But I know there was a group that they would always meet up for dinner at BBC, and they were from that first conference. So that that
kind of
says a lot.
group.
Yeah.
The collegiality that was formed then and continued with IABA was just wonderful and amazing, and people willingness and interest in sharing the ideas with other people, not being really retentive. Oh, I know this, so you can't have it.
Oh, right.
Just amazing compared to other groups that we had been in, not to mention any project. No.
Yeah. I know there are those groups out there, and I know our group of speakers that's always at some of the same events. It's like it's a family reunion time,
Yeah.
And that's the thing that caught me off guard, because when I joined IIBA, I knew the professional part of it, but it kind of surprised me. I wasn't really looking for new friends, but I found some that are probably as close, if not closer, as family, and so now we're going to go down memory lane. Rich, what is your most favorite IIBA memory or business analysis? It doesn't have to be related to IIBA, but it probably will be.
Well, favorite memory about IIBA or business analysis?
Well, business analysis in general, just something that stands out as just the best time.
Since we've been talking about BBC, I haven't really thought about it per se, but talking about the BBC conferences, I guess, would be maybe lumped all together. If I think of them over the years, it was something we always look forward to. Like you said, meeting friends. We're just talking with a colleague, Carl Wiegers, and he's good friends with Joy Beatty. And every year we would meet up with her and have dinner sometimes when she was free. And she's just one name that just popped in my head. There are many others. And so it was, like Elizabeth said, very warm and collegial, and a chance to catch up with old friends. And Kevin Brennan, we would always hang out with him a little bit every year, catch up on his family and his kids and whatever. So I guess to me that
Yeah.
That whole BBC event every year is one of my favorite memories.
Exactly, for sure. Elizabeth, what do you think is one of your favorite memories from?
So in addition to that, being on the item writing committee, it's more of the same kind of thing. Just being really, really close to the people who were in that room, I mean, to this day. And again, that idea of forming friendships, colleagues that I really admire, have always admired since then. It was just a really wonderful event, in addition to the BBC, which has to be high, high, high.
Right. Right, exactly.
And that
Joe?
was for version 2, I think.
Right, yeah, that probably would have been, yes. Joe?
Yeah, I think it's still got to be people, you know. There's not any particular ERD or process flow that's like really sticking in my mind as being the great one, right? You know, there's been some lovely projects along the way, but the thing that you always remember is the colleagues on the team, like perhaps going up against a deadline and coming through it together, or it's at conferences, it's the opportunity to meet people, to talk with people you've you know that you respect, like Elizabeth said. It's sort of, you've read the book, or you know, you've read the white paper or something, and it is just wonderful that we have that connectivity, I think. And so, you know, I forget the words along the way, but I remember those moments that felt great, and it always involved some kind of people, some kind of camaraderie, I think.
Mhm.
Yep, that is exactly that's exactly how I feel too. I don't know that there's one specific memory. I think that probably last year's BA Day comes to my mind because I was leaving the GCC chair, and I knew they were going to do something for me, but you could have knocked me out of this chair when they gave me the IIBA Lifetime Achievement Award.
Mm.
That is still probably one of the biggest honors in my life. And I was famous for having my membership last. So Jared said, yeah, here you go. It won't happen again with your lifetime membership. So maybe that's why, you know, but I think that was the culmination of everything. So I obtained I always joke, I obtained a PhD in calendars and time zones, because I had to set up a lot of meetings, and boy, that's something when you're doing it globally, you know. There isn't an hour of the day I haven't had a meeting. So, you know,
Really.
and I'm not joking. So, coming more to the present, and I know that Elizabeth and Rich, you're not quite as active, but I do know you occasionally are doing consulting and speaking virtually. So, what is there something that stands out from the present?
Present.
Yeah.
What strikes me as really cool is that IABA is really actively going into different directions with cybersecurity and data analytics and other certifications that are keeping things fresh and growing, and not just sticking with, you know, a core, which is still there, mind you, but
Right.
I think all of the other areas that they're branching out into, I think, is a cool thing. And that's not just really that's the last several years for sure that has been happening.
Right. They have a lot going on, as always. They're doing new chapter websites now. So that's, you know, that's a big ordeal, and talked about it for a long time, you know. Elizabeth?
I see two things really. I mean, a lot of emphasis on AI. And I remember I started speaking on AI in 2015 or 16, but it's really exploded.
Oh, right.
That's on the one hand. On the other hand, the emphasis on good old-fashioned techniques that have always been there, and I believe will always be there, regardless of whatever methodologies, industry, whatever the topic of the day is. So I see those things as being really important today.
Exactly. It hasn't changed. If you can't talk to the people, then you certainly can't help them. nor can you be successful.
Right.
That's the thing. That's how I feel, at least. Joe, what's your thought?
My thought about the present is that I just think all eyes are on the future at the present. It's almost like there is no present because everybody's just sort of looking ahead and asking questions, and I think that's fantastic. I mean, as you know, Judy, I've done a whole series of like
Yeah.
grilling
Yeah.
people in the industry about what they think, what they see, and what they expect, and you know, I mean, obviously AI is there, but I just think there's so much more beyond that. There's so much opportunity for us, and I feel like the world's our oyster now. Actually, I think there's a lot of things to get excited about moving forward. To be sort of show a bit more curiosity, a little bit more adventure, and just get involved in stuff. Really, so I'm excited for the present day.
Yeah, there is a bright future with a lot of things. It's interesting as I've seen how people in other professions beside business analysis, excuse me, have embraced AI and Chat GPT and all the tools. Um, they don't seem to have any shame that they're just going to let AI create something and use it. It really was kind of stunning because at BBC this year, it was like when they were talking about AI, a lot of the people were just so against it, you know. And I haven't started just, copying, but I've played with AI for a good year, and it can reword something in a way that sounds better. Doesn't mean it's not my content. But it just was so amazing at BBC. They were so concerned that people were just going to plagiarize everything and the ethics part. And I get that, but I think that we should try to embrace the wonderful things that it can do. And so many BAs thought, oh, I'm going to lose my job. Well, no, you're not. It'll help you do things hopefully quicker, but you still have to, the AI, can't just do your elicitation of requirements and different things like that. I mean, like you talk about the techniques, there's probably like 50 or so in the Babok, and everybody, if you quiz them, uses about the same 4 or 5 techniques. Like Mindy just commented, techniques are timeless. Yep.
Good.
And that's very true. There's always somebody new. I had a conversation on the phone today with a new BA, and it's just so refreshing to talk to them because they just absorb everything, and it was just fabulous. But yeah, it was interesting how some of the people were just so, we have to, and I agree, we can't plagiarize things, but it just, I don't know, let's embrace it. I wish I was, no, I really don't, but if I was younger, I would probably get into the cybersecurity big time because that really intrigues me. But that's probably because I've been hacked a couple times in the last few years, so.
IT gets a bit of a bad rap when it comes to retrenchment, when it comes to redundancy, and I think there's a little bit of a hangover from the 1990s when sort of business process re-engineering did do a little bit of damage, and so people are right to have a bit of anxiety and fear when something big and new comes along, but
Sure.
I've seen big wall-to-wall ERP packages put in, and that's another occasion that people can be a little bit fearful for their future. But there just seems to be a trend that big change suddenly brings a whole lot more opportunity, reskilling, like put somewhere else. It's economics that retrench, and I do think with AI that. As much as we're looking there, suddenly there's going to be like 100 new things to play with and to do, right? And we just don't see them at the moment.
Yep, that's true. I have some software that I recently obtained that I can actually build like a mobile game. Now I don't know how to run it yet, but someday, Fabrizio is really the one who's really dove into AI and has done some really wonderful things with it. And that's good. There's always going to be change, and you always should be passing it down to the previous generation, or you're doing your company or whoever a disservice, because there won't be anyone to take over if you don't help them. That's like teaching a BA to be a leader, because BAs need to be leaders.
And so, Judy, to pick up on you were mentioning about the game software.
Yeah.
If you can build on someone else's framework, it takes some of the drudgery out, because some of the basics,
Right.
say programming, for instance, or even business analysis,
Sure.
that can be done better through a bot. Then it gives us a chance to do some more high order and more creative and more really career satisfying kind of analysis. And I think people may be fearful about that, and maybe companies aren't just recognizing that enough to give us that opportunity. So I think that's a constant battle in the BA community. I think it's for as far as not to pigeonholed into administrative roles, but I think software can help lift us out of some of those basic tasks. What do you all think?
Yeah, exactly. Do both of you agree with that? I do.
I do. I also think where we are right now, I'm not sure how well AI can uncover the real problem and ask really good questions to come up with a really good solution. Once they have the data, they might recommend a good solution, but the fundamentals of what a BA does, I don't see them. I could see AI helping rather for now. That might change.
Right.
Could easily.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. One time when I asked it a couple questions about leadership and even like high performing teams, I wanted to see what it would tell me. And it did kind of surprise me that it came up with, about 10 or 12 characteristics and then defined them. And it was pretty much how I thought. So, it was interesting, but yet you're right. Like what was it? Chat GPT at one time, it only went back to like 2021 or something, and it'll tell you, I don't have any knowledge past that, past that time, Joe, what do you think about what Rich said?
I think, well, just in this AI thing in general, I think a tool is a tool, right? And there's a phrase I forget about, a tool and a fool, but I'm a little bit reminded of templates, and the fact that you can get a BA who takes that corporate template and they fill it in like it's some kind of form, right, without really applying the thinking. Okay. And then you get the BA who goes away and does the work, finds the answers, and then populates, the template with what's necessary. AI could be the same. There's going to be some people who sort of say, this is my final answer by taking AI's output. And there are some people who are going to put something in AI and go, well, this is a start for me. This is a base from which I can work from. And we're always going to get those two types of BA, aren't we? So, I think it's going to be, it's going to be down to the individual, really, how they leverage this.
What do all of you feel? It's kind of been an age-old topic of business analysts. Many people don't understand what they do. Sometimes they don't get enough respect. They're known as note takers. I'm seeing a lot of that change, but then it seems like you run into other places where that still happens. What do all of you think about that? I don't care who goes first. But.
I agree that it's been that way a lot. There are many organizations. I mean, time after time, hearing people say they don't respect me, they don't view me as anything but a note taker. And then in other organizations where BAs are like, we can't live without them. We don't want to live without them. I'm also, and I don't know if there's a connection here. I kind of think there might be. Are people? Do the ones who say they don't respect me, I'm just a note taker, do they have the courage to recommend rather than taking orders. I don't know. I think there's a connection there.
Mhm.
And certainly putting on a sponsor hat, I really counted on people, at Watermark, counted on them to have done their homework and come up with really good recommendations, or find out, if they came with a recommendation, well, what business problem are you solving?
Yeah.
There might be a connection there.
Right.
They don't respect
yeah.
me, but I'm afraid to ask questions. I'm afraid to go against what they want.
Yeah. Exactly. Rich, what do you think about that?
Well, to pick up on that too, I think your organization has a lot to do with it too, because some organizations we did training in. Interesting. A favorite story I like to tell is I was teaching a class on use cases, and we were talking about, do you just repave the cow paths and do what the organization says they want, or do you start asking questions and, hey, this is really inefficient. Why don't we try it some other way? And what do you think about this? And they said, oh no, we can't do that. This is a Fortune 100 company, very large. And they said, here's my favorite punchline of all. If we ever said that, we would be marked down on our performance review as not a team player. If we questioned the status quo or a process, and I got, okay, I better leave it at that, because you can't argue with that. I mean, self preservation and performance review are important, and so continued employment is also important. So I think, having said that, maybe you want to move to different organizations or where your work is more valued, or you could actually question it, because that's more satisfying, obviously. But
Sure.
the organization culture can help inhibit or enhance that ability for us as BAs to be able to get in there and really make a difference.
Yep, you're very right about that. Joe, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that there's a bit of history that sort of shapes this. I tell a bit of a fable that I've sort of made up, which is really that the first BA was an analyst programmer, because they're the people who got given the computer and got told to build something, but perhaps their interpersonal skills weren't great. So, BA 2.0 came along, and they did play that that terrible bridging role. What do you want? Let me write it down. Let me courier it to somebody else to do. But I do think some BAs emerged from that, sort of asking questions about business processes, and that sort of became this BA 3.0, where there was just a lot more curiosity and interest in the organization. I think we're a bit further along now as well. Some people are, but I think the point to highlight here is, because we've been through that journey, some organizations stopped at like 2.0 with that bridging role, and that's how they see it. So some individuals will stay within it and self-preserve, like Rich mentions, and some people will say, actually, this isn't for me, and let me try and progress my career somewhere else. But it's sad, and I do think some of it's just in the DNA of the organisation. They've got a stereotype of the role, and stereotypes are difficult things to budge sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree. I was very fortunate that part of our management actually helped found the IIBA chapter, and so we really had their support, and I was never afraid to speak up. Now, you have to do it in a politically correct way. And, I didn't always win all the battles, but, a lot of times my teammates would come to me, well, why don't you go talk to her about that, or him, or whatever, because they just were afraid to speak up. And I think by nature, BAs are introverts. I would bet that if you did a study, you'd find a high percentage of them. I prefer to think myself as an ambivert, because with BAs and things like that, I am definitely very extroverted. But as far as if you take me to a wedding where I don't know hardly anybody but the bride or groom, I probably won't say two words and figure out a way to leave the party far earlier than you ever thought me leave a party. So, it's just, one of those things. And sometimes I witnessed a lot of BAs, though, especially in our organization, they didn't really treat it as a professional career. A lot of us that became BAs at our company were subject matter experts from the business side, and some of them just had a hard time shedding that. But I do think a lot has helped to, bring it along. It's not perfect, but very few things in life are even perfect. So that's that's a good thing, that it's at least progressing. And I think with all the certifications and all the opportunities out there, um, a lot of people used COVID to do a lot of professional development, and that's a good thing. I was pleased about that. Um, Elizabeth, you talk about how you actually had a job with the title BA in 1983. That
Yes.
in those years,
Mhm.
you didn't even hear of that title or even project manager, at least where I was hanging out. Yeah.
It was interesting, and we had a boss, the director of IT, who was very forward thinking.
Mm.
A
Mhm.
couple of things on that. One, I remember my first thing, I was so excited to be a BA, and I was given an assignment, and I was basically an order taker. I'll never forget it. And I had been a management consultant, I knew better, but I would go out and ask people, well, what were their requirements without ever stepping back. And I remember my boss being very disappointed in what I handed in. And well, this wasn't what I was looking for, and I had never asked the
Mhm. Sure.
right questions. I mean, it was all this new kind of a, what is my job?
Right. Yeah.
It was
Exactly.
kind of confusing. Also, a few years later, I was promoted to project manager because that was a career path. So
Oh.
BAs were not viewed as, I mean, we were important. We were very important. But not as important as the project manager. And now I think with IIBA, they just did the most amazing job of getting the whole BAs to view themselves in the world, to view BAs as professionals, as a
Right.
profession in and of itself, which is so important.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's very different from 1983, thank heavens.
Oh, yes, yes. I remember, as I look back in the roles that I had in claims and policy owner service, I really was a business analyst and probably at times a project manager. But it didn't really occur to me at the time because those weren't, those were not roles. The big difference between 1983 and now is that I didn't have a computer at my desk, and I didn't have,
Right.
you if you wanted to talk to someone, you had to get up and go talk to them because there was no email or things like that. And that was the biggest thing, which, there's certain parts of that that's probably still good, but,
Mhm.
technology, it's as much as it's helped us, it's probably hurt us in just in mass, of many facets of life. But yeah, that's interesting. I caught that. I thought 1983. Wow, that's
So, let me jump in. In 1983, I was a programmer analyst. That
okay.
was my job title. We did probably 90% programming and 10% analysis.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because kind of what Joe, you're talking about your BA 1.0. I mean, I worked at a small bank, and mostly we bought software packages. And my job, I think, was to find out what parts of the software package that I was installing, because I was also a quasi project manager. We did it all, and I didn't
Yeah.
really understand all that back then. But find out how far apart from the software package to the actual user requirements there were, and how can we get them to change their process to match the software package. That's kind of how it felt. There were some deviations, and I kind of messed up along the way. I didn't quite always get it right, but that was my kind of second take on analysis. Elizabeth, you mentioned being a business or what do you call it, consultant, right? Internal consultant, and I did a little of that at the same bank that she did, and that was really my first taste in actual analysis, which was very, very eye-opening. And and I couldn't get a job as a business analyst
Mm.
or even as an operations analyst back in this is the late 1970s, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
There wasn't a job. I remember interviewing for a couple of close calls, but one was at a cardboard box manufacturer, and I thought that'd be kind of dull. I don't think I would like that, analyzing boxes and assembly. So I decided to go into programming because that was kind of like the best fit I could find.
Sure.
I wanted to pursue a career there, but so that was kind of the state of affairs around 1980. So Elizabeth, yeah, you were one of the first BAs, I'm sure.
Wow. Yeah, that's that's interesting. Joe, when did you become a BA in the in your career?
The first time I got the job title, I think was, let me think, 1998, I think.
Oh, okay.
But my role was not a BA. It was a project manager called a BA. Because my first project was the Y2K Millennium, so-called.
Okay.
And one of the things, certainly the way the organisation I was working for treated it, it was a regression project, because they were obviously just worried about the double digit. So it was just rewrite this, but write it with 4 years for the digit. So functionally, it was supposed to be like for like. So it was like a regression test project, which meant that the existing application was the spec. So there were no requirements. And so my job was actually just to check progress on a project plan. But I was called a business analyst. It was only when I went for the next business analyst job I suddenly realised I'd done none of it, and I had to quickly study to stay in it. But yeah,
I always think of what our good friend Philip says, how most of us became BAs by accident. So BA is by accident. You were doing something else, or you were, I became one when we had this horrible reorganization, and I was demoted and expected to do the same job for 20% less pay and less authority. So I got out of there as quick as I could, believe me. So that's how most of us have fell into the role, or we were doing it and just didn't realize it, like I was in the 80s. It just wasn't what it was. And yes, IIBA came along and at least gave, the stamp of, authenticity to it, for sure. So out of the past with business analysis, what is probably the one thing that you disliked the most?
So the one thing that you
disliked the most, whether it was a job you had or, you were all revved up for some conference and, it wasn't what you thought it was going to be or something.
Boy, that stands out.
I wouldn't change anything, actually. Like I say, my first job turned out to be a PM job, not a BA job. I remember some rocky projects and things, but I miss some of those early days rather than consider particular things that stick out as being something to change. One of the things I miss is actually doing some of those diagrams that I don't think we get the opportunity to do anymore. When it was bespoke software, it was a lot more fun, I think, than some of these packages these days. There's still joy to be had in implementing packages, but I miss really understanding the inner workings of stuff from scratch.
Okay. Elizabeth, do you have anything?
Well, my worst experience was my second job, and I had been a management consultant, and the title was project leader. What they wanted in retrospect was a BA, but I wasn't smart enough to put that together.
Ah.
Had I used my management consulting kinds of skills, I would have succeeded. But instead, I was trying to figure the job out. And it was a disaster. And it was one of those things, looking back, it was as painful as it was a really good experience because it reminded me,
Right.
it taught me through the pain what I needed to do going forward. So.
Yeah, you probably asked a lot more questions for sure.
Yeah, I mean, be a BA, regardless of my title, be a BA.
Yeah,
Do the
exactly.
BA things.
Right. Rich, do you have a?
Well, I have kind of a weird example because it's both a bad and a good thing.
Oh, okay.
It's the days around early certification when the Babcock 1.6 came out.
Mm.
That was a fledgling document, and looking back, they did their best, but it was a lot of holes in it and a lot of problems. Trying to interpret that and make sense out of it was a headache. But it was also exciting because certification was new, and being an entrepreneur at heart, I like getting in on ground floors and being involved with new things. So
Sure.
coming up with a training plan and an early certification guide was exciting. So that's not answering your question per se, but it was
Okay.
the headaches involved with trying to figure out, the missing pieces of the early Babcock was kind of, I don't regret it because to wait until it got perfected or till version 2 came along would have been kind of a missed opportunity, but still, there were a lot of headaches back in those days.
Yeah, to have to go from scratch and not have anything.
Right.
For sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, that Angela Wick has done some shows where a lot of them that wrote the it might have been VA Bach version 3 maybe, or it was some complimentary document, but she's had some shows where a lot of those people got together and they've been talking about it and what their thoughts were and what they were thinking. I think it was version 3, and it's been very interesting to hear them talk, and as we've all talked about today, a lot of them are really good friends as a result of it because they spent so much time together doing that. I mean, both of you know what goes into that because you were authors of several of IIBA's documents with groups of other thought leaders, so all the work that goes into doing something like that.
Yeah.
That's for sure. But yeah, so what about the future? What does the future hold? For business analysis?
Well, I think Joe kind of wrapped it up earlier when he talked about the present is really the future and things are exciting. So I want to hear from Joe some more.
Yeah, he's the baby of the broadcast. So,
that too.
He's going to be more involved in it than we will.
Right. Yeah.
I love the way you just seamlessly pass that across, Rich.
You got that, right?
let me catch it.
There you go.
So like I said, I did do a little series on this, and I started to consolidate some of the results. I put out a survey and we got over 200 responses, and I've probably interviewed about 30 people on this subject as well. And a lot of similarities came out. I think a lot AI did not come out as much as I thought it would, which I was very grateful for because I didn't want to talk about AI for an hour every week with somebody. I think broadly people do see it as an opportunity. They don't see it as a threat. They know that it's something they're going to have to harness. But I think what came out perhaps most of all, is just the sheer amount of change that we're going to go through, the rapid pace that change is happening. And in talking of people, I was reminded of that Hollywood Oscar-winning movie. Was it this year or last year? But Everything, Everywhere, all at once. That's sort of what it's starting to feel like the pace of change. And Judy mentioned, not having computers at desks and mailroom carts that move memos that take 3 days. Just everything's sped up now. It's just happening everywhere all at once. And interesting for me, another little, if you've seen the movie, I don't know if you've seen the movie, but part of it is that our heroine goes into other universes to pick up a skill that she can then bring back to her universe in which she can use. So she just builds up all of these skills. And one of the things that I am seeing is just taking things from different industries, different spaces. And I do feel like we're starting to tap into different universes, and we're bringing that back in. So as I say, I think we've got exciting times ahead. I think our skills are just going to become even more general, if that's actually possible. But it's going to be exciting times.
Okay.
And I'm going to stick with what I said before, because I agree, absolutely. Just to add on, our titles are probably going to change. We're probably going to be doing different things, but I am absolutely convinced, because we have always needed BAs. I mean, from eons ago, we will always need business analysis work, regardless of what you call it. That work will always need to be done. We need people with the skills to be able to do it. All this stuff is going on. We still need to be focused on business analysis and what that means. What is it? And I know there've been a lot of questions coming up. Well, what is the difference between a BA and a PM or a business analysis? To be focused on what does that mean? And again, as CEO, as president of Watermark, we use business analysis skills like daily, seriously. So it doesn't matter what our titles are, it's needed.
Exactly.
Off my soapbox now.
Rich, what do you think?
Well, to pick up on what Elizabeth just said, those numerous BA skills, or what Joe said about the movie, bringing those in to your work, are good grounds for promotion into other venues if you want to. You might want to stay BA forever, but if you're looking at advancement, I don't just mean as a project manager, but in rising in the business community too. I know there's talk a few years ago about BAs going up to the C level, and I think that's still true. I mean, depending on the skills you pick up and your own interest in abilities, I think that the BA role can be a stepping stone if you want it. So for the future, I think organizations will slowly come to value the work we do more than they have in the past. That's been true for a long time. It's not going to go away, that challenge, I don't think. But it's getting better. I think for the future, businesses do recognize that. And IABA has played a big part in helping spread the word. So without the organization, and I don't mean this to be a pat the IABA on the back, because there's certainly a lot of room for improvement there, but I think the job of championing the BA role that IABA has done is significant and very important.
Yeah.
And so I see that continuing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I agree 100% with what Elizabeth said, because, I think the titles may change in certain places, but business analysis itself, I think it's a great area to be in. They say it's like one of the fastest growing jobs over the next 5 years. So we'll see. In certain areas, it would be nice if, the salaries would get a little better. But, that's with everybody. People always say, I'll say to them, I go, well, really, everybody's a BA. And people will say, what do you mean? I'm not a BA. And I go, do you go to the grocery store? And they go, yes. And then they say, and then I said, well, now you write a list before you go, don't you? And they go, yes. I go, well, those are your requirements right there. And then they kind of look at me, but it goes into so much of life, in general. So to kind of wrap this show up now, we got about 10 minutes left. Um, it is IIBA's 20th anniversary, so I think it's appropriate that all of us say some words about IIBA. Rich, you want to go first?
Well, yeah, I said a couple things about them, and I think the emphasis on standards and certifications is really important. I would like to see IABA come out with a new BABOK, but I guess they seem to be content with the current one and developing these certifications. So I think that's a good balance. Because I think having worked on IABA version 3, I was one of the authors on one of the knowledge areas. I wasn't in the core team, but it is a lot of work and it involves a lot of vetting and review, and it's painful. So I think they're wisely holding off on that. I'd like to see them get back to a new one at some point. But I think I like the trend of the different certifications, and as with all things, I think they could do more ambassadorial work to spread the word, because things are slowly changing. And I think I'm an impatient person. I'd like to see them go faster, and I think they could. But IABA is trying to balance all of those things between, Judy, you mentioned working on chapters, and some of those back end things they take time and resources too. So for the organization to grow, they have to pay attention to that as well. But I think
a lot of people think that IIBA is some huge organization, and I can tell you that personally, having been in charge of the GCC and needing things, I've seen stuff that I was working on go from number 1 to like, well, they still haven't done it, and I've been gone a year. It just they have such a small amount of people, and obviously being a nonprofit, they can't have a huge army. But one major project really brings everybody to a halt, and so I've seen the inside of it, and a lot of chapter leaders and people would be hollering at me, why, well, that is how it works, and they try to be very, prudent with the, members' dollars, as any organization would like that. But yeah, you're right. It would be nice to go faster. Joe, what do you think?
I think there are a number of organisations, a number of books out there that give you some guidance when it comes to doing the work that we do. What I want to sort of highlight for IIBA, I think, is the remarkable chapter network that has been created, because that's what brought the community together. That's what brought us all here today, and virtually everything I attend, that's not at work and it's business analysis related. Somehow it's a conference because it's a chapter annual meet, or it's some tools and techniques session. I think the way that the organisation has managed to get a volunteer network of like-minded people all trying to collaborate and share in a form of community has just been absolutely remarkable, actually. And I'm very grateful for that, I think, every single day, because I'll have some kind of interaction with somebody somewhere that is a result of the IIBA existing. Yeah.
Elizabeth?
Agree with both Joe and Rich. To add on, in the 1990s, and I was mainly a project management, but at a large organization where I worked, I had that organization's first BA work for me. And then gradually the role of BA, it worked so well that other teams added BAs. But there was a lot of infighting, disagreement on what that BA should be doing. And a lot of, why are you right and am I wrong? Why am, etc. What IIB, one of the many things that IIBA has done has to give us a framework, give us a consistency. This is what business analysis work is. And I remember the first time I read version 1.6, and there was something about managing risks. My initial reaction was, oh heavens, that's a project manager's job, because I'd been a project manager at that point. Not understanding the role of risks to the product, risk to the organization, and not just the project. IIBA has given us all those things.
Right.
Kudos to IIBA.
Right.
And can I jump back in?
Yeah, absolutely.
What you said, Elizabeth and Joe, reminded me of, you talk about memories of IIBA over the years. We had the privilege of, where we talked before this started, about being in South Africa for some of the BA summits. We've also been able to speak in India and New Zealand and different places. And it was remarkable how people's challenges, opportunities, solutions around the world were so much alike. And it just struck us. Elizabeth and I talked about this more than one occasion. And I think IIBA had a lot to do with that, and the standards, the BABOK, helped people with a common framework and vocabulary to talk about things. And it was just really striking how fun it was, really, that we saw how similar people were around the world with the BA challenges. And so.
Yeah, that's a great point. I fully admit I don't think I would have been half the BA I was if I hadn't found IIBA. But the thing I found was so many wonderful people who have become lifelong friends. And as one of my other friends put it, you could probably find out a good restaurant in almost any place in the world. And I said, well, yeah.
Good point.
The other thing that really touched me has nothing to do with analyzing anything, but when I was ill last year, they sent out one of those electronic cards, and they were signed by people from 7 of the 8 continents of the world. Mm-hmm. And that was very touching. And so I told Jared and Danelkis that they needed to start a chapter in Antarctica, because there wasn't one. But, happy 20th to IIBA, because it's well deserved. And hopefully they have many more years of success and everything. I will give a plug to one of the upcoming jam shows. Actually, all of them are good. And you can, on LinkedIn, there's our BA, the 2023 BA Jam, where they're all listed. But on Friday, Angela is hosting a show where she has Kevin Brennan, Glenn Brule, Kathleen Barrett, and there's one other person, and I should remember them, but I don't. And so it's going to be the pioneers of IIBA, and I think that will be a fabulous show that will be very fun to listen to, as all of them, So I have to have my binge sometime to watch all of them, because you can't be everywhere at once, I guess. Well, I thank each and every one of you for joining me today. It was very good to see you, Rich and Elizabeth, both of you. Hadn't talked or seen you for a long time. And
yes, way too long.
Way too long, yes, exactly.
So Judy, thank you for inviting us. We really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. It as I said, it wouldn't have been complete. And, I'm maybe just a little bit biased about the people in the central region of the United States. So, no, you're okay. Don't take that as an offense. But there's something special. And Joe, I really thank you for coming too. It was great, and I didn't even realize that they had spoken at the summit. So
yeah,
I guess now that's my assignment. I need to go speak at the summit.
It's your assignment, and I can't remember who was on your other jam.
Ryan.
Well, you had Ryan and Paula, and they've both spoken at the summit as well. But I don't know who else you had on. So clearly, you've got something subconsciously happening here, Judy.
I must. It's not what I was thinking of when I reached out to people. But at any rate, thank you to anyone who has joined us in the audience. We had a little bit of a technical snafu today, and I don't know how many of all the people who had signed up made it back, but I appreciate everyone who has been here, and I thank each of my speakers. And so for now, we will sign off, and I know I'll be back with more Optimistic Bite Show in the future. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks again, Judy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.